Today's lesson is shopping abroad. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we've got Hannah traveling to Australia, and she's buying some things. And there are some things that she needs to know about when she buys things in another country. So that's why our article today is entitled Shopping Abroad, which I assume you've done quite a lot of there, Mike.
I do like to go abroad, but I'm not much of a shopper, I have to admit. Although I've been known to hit up a duty-free store in an airport, and I do like to pick up some ugly souvenirs of some of the places I go. But no, I'm not the type of person who burns through my credit cards in the shopping malls while I'm abroad. But if you don't go abroad and do a little bit of shopping, you know, maybe you don't have a lot of things to bring home as souvenirs and for memories. So it is nice.
It is indeed. And yes, I believe when you travel, you should be taking pictures and collecting memories and experiences and things like that. Those are the most important. But indeed, sometimes you want to buy some things like duty-free wine or whatever, or souvenirs. And that's what Hannah is doing in today's conversation. So let's dive right in. Let's listen to part 1, asking about a tax refund. Let's listen now.
Shopping abroad. 1. Asking about a tax refund. Hannah is visiting Australia and has just bought some clothes.
Your total comes to $126.45. Here's my credit card. By the way, is it possible to get a tax refund on these items? I'm here on holiday. Sure, but there's a minimum purchase requirement of $300 for getting a tourist tax refund. I plan on doing some more shopping while I'm here. Could I make a claim on the accumulated amount I spend? Yes, as long as your purchases are from a shop with the same Australian business number. In other words, they'd all have to be from this store or another one of our locations. I'll keep that in mind. And remember that claims are only valid for purchases made within 60 days of your departure.
大家好，第一部分我们先看到名词 refund， 它的意思是退款或是退还。例如 I can't give you a refund on this product unless you provide the receipt. 除非你提供收据，否则这项产品我不能让你退款。又或者说 We do not offer refunds on this type of item. 这款产品我们不接受退款。另外 refund 当动词时也可以念作 refund。举例来说 The hotel manager apologized and refunded the customers. 那位饭店经理向顾客道歉并退款。再举一个例子 When Karen complained about her meal, the restaurant offered to refund her money. 当 Karen 抱怨她的餐点时，餐厅提出将退钱给她。下一个我们介绍形容词 minimum， 它指的是最低限度的或是最小的。例如 The police officer tried to use the minimum amount of force necessary to catch the suspect. 那名警员试图用最少的必要警力来抓嫌犯。另外补充它的反义形容词 maximum， M-A-X-I-M-U-M maximum， 它有最大限度的或是最高的意思。例如 The maximum capacity for this elevator is 10 people. 这台电梯最多可搭载10个人。又或者说 The purchase price exceeds the maximum limit on Deanne's credit card. 那笔购物的价格超过了 Deanne 信用卡的最高额度上限。再来我们看到单字 valid， 它是形容词，意思是有效的、被正式认可的或是正当的。举例来说 You need a valid ID to get into the gym. 你需要有效的身份证明才能进入那家健身房。又或者说 Most passports are valid for 10 years from the date of issue. 大多数护照的有效期限为核发日起10年。最后我们介绍名词 departure， 它的意思是出发、启程或是离开。例如 We must delay our departure until the storm leaves the area. 我们必须延后出发，直到暴风雨离开这个区域。另外补充这个字的反义名词 arrival， A-R-R-I-V-A-L arrival， 它有到来或是抵达的意思。例如 Flowers begin to grow with the arrival of spring. 花朵在春天到来时开始生长。
Okay, it's time for us to discuss the contents of the first part of our lesson for today. We're talking about getting a tax refund, or at least asking about one. And a refund is when you get your money back. And this can happen sometimes when you buy something and you didn't like it, or it did not fulfill its promise to be a good product, so you want to take it back. You want to get your money back, you want a refund.
And absolutely. And if you're a tourist, you might get a tax refund, which is pretty cool if you keep all your receipts when you're on holiday, of course, in a foreign country. And as long as you show your receipts and your passport, maybe at the airport, at one of the tourist information centers, you might get a refund or get the money back on the tax you spend. So it's a good way to save some money while you're shopping abroad. Just remember to keep those receipts.
Right, and remember here, refund is the noun. It can also be a verb. We will refund your money if you're not satisfied. Usually the accent is on the second syllable when it's a verb, refund, although you will hear people say refund both as the noun and the verb form. Now here, Hannah is visiting Australia and has just bought some clothes. I guess Australia is a good place to buy clothes. You can buy one of those hats that those guys in the outback wear. That would be kind of fashionable and kind of cool. And so she's at the store, and she's at the cash register, and the clerk says your total comes to $126.45. That would be in Australian dollars.
Yes, absolutely. So Hannah goes to pay, and she says, here's my credit card. Credit cards are useful when you're on holiday, of course. Then you don't have to change your money. So that's a smart thing to do. By the way, Hannah says, is it possible to get a tax refund on these items? I'm here on holiday. So there she is. She knows about this tax refund policy, which is very common in countries that are trying to attract tourists. And she explains that she's here on holiday, also kind of saying, you know, I'm a foreigner at the same time. This isn't the country I live in. And the clerk is happy to help her.
Exactly. I should mention here that in the U.S. we say I'm here on vacation, but you'll hear holiday from people from England, I suppose from Canada too. Do you guys say holiday or vacation? Yeah. I'm on holiday. Okay. And here the clerk says, sure, but there's a minimum purchase requirement of $300 for getting a tourist tax refund. So yes, indeed, again, she's asking about the possibility of getting a tax refund on these items. The clerk says, yeah, it's possible for sure, but you need to buy at least $300 of merchandise before you can get that tax refund. There's a minimum purchase of $300. Minimum is the lowest, whereas maximum is the highest. Again, she has to buy at least $300 worth of items.
All right, well, that should work for Hannah. She says, I plan on doing some more shopping while I'm here. So these aren't the only things that she will buy on holiday. She'll buy a few more. And then she asks this question, could I make a claim on the accumulated amount I spend? That would be a smart thing to do, and it would save her a lot of time. If we're talking about the accumulated amount or the accumulated number, that's basically like the total amount. When you accumulate things, you gather things in larger and larger numbers. So an accumulated amount is how much builds up or how much you spend over time. We could talk about accumulated rainfall or snowfall during a winter storm or during a storm or something like that. So the accumulated amount would be shopping today, shopping tomorrow, and then maybe on the last day of her holiday before she goes to the airport, then she'll go and do the tax refund, and that'll save her doing it for each thing that she buys or doing it every day. Do it on the accumulated or total amount, and it seems that she can do that. Yes, the clerk says, as long as your purchases are from a shop with the same Australian business number. So I guess these tax refunds might only work if you're doing it from one of those registered legal businesses. Most of the big shopping malls, stores, department stores, they would have these Australian business numbers. As long as you can do that or get it from a store with that registration and that sign, you can get your refund.
Right, so you'd probably need to check to make sure if these stores all have the same number, the same business number, and people, of course, use those numbers to determine whether they can get a tax refund or not. But here, of course, the clerk realizes that Hannah probably doesn't understand their system, so the clerk says, well, in other words, to explain it to you more simply, they'd all have to be from this store or another one of our locations. So in this particular sense, it sounds like this particular store is a chain store. And so you can buy items from this store or another of the same business in a different location. Again, it's a chain store, so I guess they all have the same Australian business number.
Hannah says, I'll keep that in mind. If you're keeping something in mind, you are remembering something, or you're kind of making a note of that. I will remember that. That's important information. I won't forget. I'll keep that in mind. And the clerk says, and remember that claims are only valid for purchases made within 60 days of your departure. Aha, so this is something that is really only for tourists on holiday. If you're going there for many, many months, you might not be able to claim a tax refund on everything you buy during your whole long stay in a country. It's only for purchases made within 60 days of your departure or 2 months before your departure. Departure, we'll talk about that word first. That's basically when you leave. We talk about arrivals and departures at the airport. Arrivals are people arriving or flying into a country. But if you're leaving that country, if you're going away on holiday or whatever, you will be in the departure section or the area where people are leaving from. So 60 days of when you leave or fly out of the country is what that means. And that is only when the claims are valid. If something is valid, it is allowed. Basically, the law, the rules, whatever says it's okay, it's allowed, you can use it. If you wait too long to use a coupon or a special offer, it might not be valid for more than 3 months or something like that. So if it's valid, it's okay. If it's invalid, that means it's too late, you can't use it, you're breaking the rules, you're not allowed. But if it's valid, you're okay to do it.
Right. For example, I've lived in Taiwan for a long time, so my U.S. driving license has long since expired. So if I go there and try to use my American driver's license to drive, well, they'd say, well, this is invalid. It's expired. You cannot use it. So that's why, ironically, every time I go to the U.S. to drive, I bring an international driving license that's issued here in Taiwan. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part and learn about excluded goods. Let's listen.
2. Learning about excluded goods. Hannah is paying for some food items she wants to bring back to Taiwan. And here's your invoice.
Is this the document I should present at the airport for a tax refund?
According to the procedure, yes. But I'm afraid you won't be able to make a claim on that bottle of liquor you just bought.
Why not? I thought tax refunds are applicable to alcohol.
Only for wine with an alcohol content of less than 22%. Would you like to exchange the liquor for something else?
No, that's fine.
Also, be sure not to open any item you want to make a claim on.
Okay, so the title of the second part of our lesson for today is all about excluded goods. Okay, if something's excluded, it does not count. It's not valid, basically. So she needs to find out what items are qualified for whatever it is she wants. And then she also needs to find out which ones are excluded, which ones that don't count.
Absolutely. If something is excluded, it's not included. It's kind of the opposite. So if you include something, you make it part of a group. If you exclude it, you say specifically that thing is not part of this group. So these excluded goods are basically ones that you won't get a tax refund on. So it's important to be aware of what you can and can't get the refund on. And even sometimes if you buy something that you could get a refund on, if you open it, for example, now it will be excluded. Now you cannot get the refund. It will not be included in those goods you'll get your taxes back on. So listen up. This is some important information. Let me read. Hannah is paying for some food items she wants to bring back to Taiwan. And yeah, often with food items, when you're bringing them from one country to another, there can be special rules. And these are things that you really really need to be aware of, because it would be awful to spend a bunch of money on some delicious delicacy and then have them throw it away at the airport or tell you can't get your tax refund on that. Anyway, so Hannah's finished up buying things. We know that because as we begin the dialogue, the clerk says, and here's your invoice. Your invoice is kind of like your receipt, that little piece of paper you get at the end of your business transaction when you pay for something like that in a store. You'll get a little piece of paper that has, the name of the store, the date, the time, how much you spent, how much money you got back, how much tax you paid. All of that will be recorded on that little piece of paper on the invoice.
Right, and it's more detailed than a receipt. A receipt just probably tells how much money you spent and won't really list out the items. I guess they do that nowadays, but we still wouldn't call the receipt you get from the 7-Eleven an invoice. It's still a receipt, but an invoice, of course, is more official. It's bigger, it's got more details, and it's used in a situation like this, where she's leaving from the airport and she looks the invoice over. Yep, yeah, I know this. Yeah, I know that. And now she's got a question. Is this the document I should present at the airport for a tax refund? So she wants to know if the invoice that she has just received is valid to present at the airport in order to get that tax refund.
And the clerk tells her, according to the procedure, yes. All right, so this is kind of a half answer. I'm expecting there'll be more information coming in a second, but the clerk says, according to the procedure, yes, the procedure is sort of the normal way we do things. When we talk about a standard operating procedure, an SOP, a lot of businesses and companies will have that. That's basically how you do things, the basic way, the established way that you do things. You might have a procedure when you learn how to do a special skill. There's a certain procedure for changing a flat tire on a car. You might go through a procedure when you're entering a building because of the security that they have there. You have to show your ID, and then you go over here and they look in your bag, that kind of thing. So basically, when you have to do things and it's broken down into a few steps and you have to kind of follow these steps and do it in this way, that is the procedure. So according to the procedure, yes, normally that is what you would do. But I knew there was something coming. But the clerk adds, I'm afraid you won't be able to make a claim on that bottle of liquor you just bought. So if she had bought something else, a pair of shoes, a bottle of perfume, who knows? The procedure is, take the invoice to the airport, get your tax refund. But because you bought a bottle of liquor that may be special for some reason, you will not be able to, or at least the normal procedure will not apply. Why not, I want to know, Roger?
Yeah, why not? She says, I thought tax refunds are applicable to alcohol. You could say applicable or applicable. Both pronunciations are common. And she thought, well, if I bought something that contains alcohol, like a bottle of wine, a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of gin or whatever, she thought that she could get a tax refund on the alcohol because the refunds are applicable to alcohol. They apply to alcohol. They can be used in that particular situation. At least that's what she thought.
Only for wine with an alcohol content of less than 22%. Aha, these are the little rules that you got to be aware of because you might get a bit of a shock. So I guess what she bought was a bottle of alcohol with an alcohol content of more than 22%, maybe like a bottle of whiskey or gin or vodka. That's around 40%, but less than 22, that would be like wine and beer, things like that. I think sake might also be less than 22%. You can get a refund if the alcohol content or the amount of alcohol by volume, and they measure it in a percentage out of 100, is less than 22. So lighter alcoholic drinks, as I said, like beer and wine. But if it's the higher alcohol stuff like whiskey, no, you will not be able to get a refund. That's an interesting rule. Would you like to exchange the liquor for something else? Here's a nice offer from the clerk. If you really want that tax refund, if you're looking to save money, you can still get something, just not that bottle of liquor that you have there.
Right, so remember you need to use the word exchange here. You've got one thing and you want to give it back to them and get something else in return. So that's exchanging something. And yes, indeed, the clerk is asking her politely, well, maybe I can offer you this option, this choice. You could exchange the liquor for something else, perhaps for a bottle of wine or some beer or something like that, and then the alcohol content would be lower than 22%, and then it would not be excluded. You could still get a tax refund on that particular item. But Hannah thinks it's not really a big deal. I still want this liquor. It's okay. It's just a little bit of money. So no, that's fine. I do not need to exchange the liquor for something else.
Also, the clerk says be sure not to open any item you want to make a claim on. There you go. So don't take the plastic wrapping off that bottle of perfume and spray yourself with it, or open that bottle of wine and have a little glass. If you've opened it, you cannot claim a tax refund on it anymore. Things have to be wrapped up in their original packaging. Do not touch until you get home, or at least until you get your tax refund.
So there you have it. We've learned about excluded goods, and we've also learned about how to ask for a tax refund. Let's wrap up our lesson now by listening to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分的对话里， Hannah 她买了一些衣服，那么店员告诉她说一共是 126.45 元。句子里面它就是用 come to 去表达合计为多少，总计为多少。那这个用法呢是在后面接数字，通常是接金额总数。好，举例来说 The bill came to $40， 账单共计40美元。好，那我们也顺便补充一下 come to 加名词的其他用法。第一种呢，我们可以用来表达达成或是来到，那么在 come to 后面接名词去表达说达到某个状态或者是结果。例如 come to an agreement 就是达成协议， come to an end 就是表达结束啊、告终、进入尾声等等。好，第二个我们可以用 come to 加上名词去表达发生、降临的意思，像 something comes to somebody 就可以表达某事发生、降临在某人身上。举例来说 I believe that good things will come to those who work hard。 我相信好事会降临在勤奋努力的人身上。那么另外 something comes to somebody 其实还可以用来表达某人想到记起某事。举例来说 An idea just came to me 就是说我刚刚突然想到一个点子了。那我们接着看到课文第二部分对话标题，他说 Learning about excluded good，了解不包含的商品。这个 exclude 这个动词它就表示不包含，把什么排除在外。那我们来学习它的字首字根，看到 CLUD 或者是 CLUS 或者是 CLOSE 这些字根，它们有那种关闭、封锁、结束或是围住的意思。像 include 它是表达把什么包围在里面，那它就有包括的意思。那么 exclude 这个单字呢，它的字首 EX 表示在什么什么之外，那么字根 clude 的部分表示关闭。那当我们把某人或某事物关在外面，那就表示是把它排除在外，不包括咯。好，我们顺便补充几个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是conclude， C-O-N 这个字首它表示完全，那么 clude 这个字根表示结束，完全结束应该可以联想到 conclude 它就是表达结束或是总结的意思了。第二个补充的是 seclude， 它的字首 S-E 表示分开，那么 clude 有关闭的意思，如果把自己关起来跟大众群体分隔开来，那就表示孤立隔绝咯。那么 seclude 这个动词它就可以表达使什么隔离、孤立、隐居的意思。好，那么第三个补充的是 disclose， 它的字首 D-I-S 表示否定，那么 close 是关闭。同学们可以试着联想，某个秘密它不是关在小房间里面让几个人知道，而是把它公开透露出去。用这个方式我们可以联想到 disclose 它有揭发、透露或是公开的意思。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Refund. I requested a refund for the sweater because it was too small. Minimum.In Taiwan, the minimum age requirement for voting is 20 years old. Valid. Bridget's train ticket is only valid until the end of the week. Departure. The flight's departure time was delayed by 2 hours. Exclude. The prices listed exclude taxes and additional fees. Procedure. The store has a detailed procedure for handling customer complaints.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.